This is The Second Studio, hosted by two architects, myself, David Lee, and Marina Bordeaux-Ronay. This week, it's the two of us in the studio. An after-hours conversation, which we haven't done in a while. And these are casual conversations after office hours, as longtime listeners know. And what do we talk about in these conversations?
Random things.
Random things. I think these used to be called Design and Random Rambles was
that's right.
Previous name before we rebranded the whole thing.
That's right.
And
actually, there's a few of you listeners who very much so enjoy those after hours episodes.
Yeah, it's a funny... Sponsors.
This episode of The Second Studio is brought to you by BQE Core, the all-in-one firm management software built for architects. Designed by architects for architects, Core helps you track time effortlessly, manage projects seamlessly, and get paid faster so you can focus on design, not spreadsheets. With powerful automation and real-time insights, it's everything you need to run a smarter, more profitable firm. See how BQE Core can transform your practice by clicking the link in our show notes.
This is The Second Studio with the two of us. Here we go. As we were saying, and it's a funny thing because, the after hours, I'm not encouraging people to listen to the after hours conversations because it'll get us in trouble, but those are the ones that are like the most beloved, if I could use that phrase for our own podcast. But there seems to be, those are the ones that strike a chord with the listeners.
I think because they're probably easier to tune in. Like it's just, like you're having a beer with a few friends and you're just shooting the shit and see where that goes.
Not that we would ever have drinks on the podcast. We would never do such a thing, listeners.
Did you pour yourself a beer and you give me a mini mason jar of water?
I was going to offer you some rosé, but you have a headache, so if I offered you rosé, would you say yes?
Yeah, no, I probably don't want any.
Well, there you go.
I am struggling with headaches and I have a somewhat sore throat this morning. Who knows, age, it's a terrible thing. Aging is a terrible thing.
Yeah. It's all relative, the age thing.
Everything falls apart. It's like, God,
It's, what's funny is that, when you're, whatever age you are, and you're around people who are older than you by 10, 15 years, 20 years, whatever, there's just a natural assumption that they have their stuff figured out, or they have more figured out than you do. And, they've experienced more than you have, but they don't have it more figured out than you do necessarily, like, at all.
It's like when you're a kid and you see parents and you're like, oh my God, they got their shit together. They're like adults and like their whole life is like planned and they got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And our listeners might not know, but we actually had a baby a few months ago. And I'm like, I don't...
That's actually quite big news to me, I guess.
And I'm like...
People are like, wait, what? You're like, wait. You guys...
Wait. So, some people are probably like, wait, are they together?
We aren't actually strictly platonic, but we just thought we'd be an interesting experiment to see how it turns out. How it turns out.
But it's like, I don't know, like when you're a kid and you're thinking about the idea of becoming a parent, it's like, it's such a serious thing and people must have it all figured out. And now that we are parents, I'm like, no, we don't have it figured out.
No, we don't. I mean,
figured out enough, I would say. We
haven't had to call 911 yet. Nothing. We haven't dropped it yet.
Knock on wood.
There's I think a bit. It was by Bill Burr. It's an old one, and I think it was Bill Burr. He says, "Do you remember when you first found out that your dad is an idiot?" Because when you're a kid, in particular, I think if you were a son, most kids I think look up to their parents, mom or dad or whatever, and at some point you realize. You find out they don't know as much as you think they knew or know. And then you find out later on, like, you're not nearly as good at this thing that, as compared to me.
It's funny because it makes me think of, I think when I realized that my dad was making up a bunch of stuff when he was talking. Because, growing up, it's like, my dad knows so much. Then I think maybe I was a teenager and I'm like, I don't think you just made that up. And I think maybe because my mom was, making that comment and eventually we all were like, or like when we realized that, it was saying stuff and I'm like, no, actually I heard the opposite. So no, that's not true.
I think the internet also helped with that. It must have had a shift too, because now you just look up stuff and it's like, no.
That's true.
I also think it's, And obviously we love our parents, but I think it's like
It's a dad thing.
I think it's a dad thing. Like they just make things up. They just say, "Oh, those people do this way," or "Oh, that's how it works," and this car does that. It's like, does that? I don't. But you don't. And sometimes you don't even have to fact check. You just kind of ask one more question, and they just blah, 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 blah. It's like,
and the whole narrative falls apart.
So what are you saying? Why don't say it?
I know.
You know.
The latest thing with my parents is that they just jump to conclusion within a second. You know, and
do you think it's an old age thing? When you get to past a certain point.
I think so. I don't know if it's
retire?
a biological thing, like the brain just stops making just make shorter connections on things.
There
like,
is something
is that
physiological about it, because we were speaking with somebody, and their profession is like mental health, let's say, and they've been doing that for decades, and they remarked that when you get older, your brain actually becomes like physically more not calcified, but kind of crystallized and hardened. And then, versus when you're younger, it's softer. And I guess it's a physical thing, but also
it starts to be
neuron
petrified.
thing or whatever. Like, and when you're forced to experience new things, then it forces your brain to make new connections. That's why, like, I have read that traveling is a great thing in general because it forces new things into your mind. So I think there's something to that. I actually, to be honest, I have a fear of getting old. Like, and I've realized it more and more the last maybe, I don't know, 4 years or so. It kind of scares me.
It's a weird thing.
Like I'm talking about 75, like old, like elderly old.
Oh, 75 is not that old.
It's real.
The thing is, you're Asian, so you're gonna live until you're like 95. It's true. You have Asians have great genes.
This plant is in the way.
Why are we turning it toward you?
I'm leaning back and it's hitting me.
Well, no, you have Asian genes, so it means you're gonna live forever. So you're gonna experience the time that sucks. I'll be gone, long gone.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it is. I don't know.
It's interesting, and it's interesting about the brain thing because I can definitely attest that when I was pregnant, there is this thing called pregnancy brain, where your brain just kind of like, it's not foggy, but it just doesn't function as well. And apparently you actually lose gray matter during pregnancy. So imagine if you have 10 kids, how much gray matter you've lost. I mean, this is like not good, right? And it's funny because it's only now that I feel like my brain is back to functioning like it was before I was pregnant.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's great.
Just FYI, I've been keeping track and I think like I'm 100% back.
Good thing I haven't been checking your work.
No, but it's true. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's not scattered brain. It's just like, it feels like your brain does not work.
Doesn't
it is
click.
Weird. Yeah, it's weird.
I cannot speak to that kind of experience, but I was sick recently. I think it was just a cold, but it tends to be whenever I get sick, I'm in bed.
No, but it's every man that gets sick.
I think it might be like, also that, right?
When men are sick, they're dying. It's the end. That's it. That's it.
But I do think I personally have seen a pattern of that, and it's not. I don't think it's just because all of the guys we know are being overly dramatic. It's something about that. Like, for example, well, my dad's my dad, so it would make sense. But whenever he would get sick growing up, like he was sick.
Oh, my dad too, and that was the end. Like it was just that's it. He was dying every time he had a sore throat. That's it.
Well, I don't know if I classify myself. I was dying this last time I was sick.
I mean, it was like
can't do anything.
It was like a big deal.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What does that mean?
I don't know. I feel like men just don't handle sickness.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. No, that's careful.
I do believe in that, and you can ask every single woman. I
think that I've seen anecdotally that guys tend to get more sick when they get sick. I cannot say why that's the case, and I won't make assumptions either as to why that's the case, like you are doing, which is not slightly, it is sexist, but that's fine. No, but so I was sick for, 5 days I was in bed and I just couldn't. And then finally, when I was well enough to get back to my office desk, which is like a great way to signify that I'm healthy, I can go back to work, right? Like the first day, my brain just wasn't clicking. It was so weird. I was trying to think I had a thought and I was going to speak that thought, and it had to do with following up with the client on a project or something. And my brain just froze. I was like, what would I say? What's that? and then was it and it just wouldn't click. It was like, I was like, this sucks. And then I was afraid, like, is this going to be the rest of my life like this? But I think that's part of the fear that I have of becoming old at that age. Because, when we're out doing groceries or living life and whatever, and you bump into strangers who are older, they're just like completely oblivious. And I'm not just talking about like they're walking down the middle of the fucking grocery aisle, which is the case, but there's other things too. And it scares me. And like, I don't like the idea that at some point in my life, I might be so distant and detached from reality around me. That spooks me, to be honest.
But I also wonder, like, if you are an architect, and like if you just stay stimulated, if you stay cultured, if you keep traveling, if you keep doing things, if that somehow maintains you in a decent shape, I feel like the people like that, and most likely like things aren't stimulating enough around them to keep the juice going in there. You know what I mean?
I think it's definitely true. I mean, my family has remarked that certain relatives, I come from a fairly large family, so there's a lot of like aunts and uncles, great aunt and uncles, and a decent population to draw statistics from. And so you have an older group of folks who are elderly, like I've described, and it's kind of clear that a lot of them, when they retire, they become progressively more and more just disassociated from things, and they ramble on and they go on and like on these weird tangents that don't end up anywhere, much like this podcast. And it's just like, it's almost like a sci-fi movie. It's like, but you're not in reality right now, and it freaks me out.
Well, I think it's like again, keeping something that stimulates you every day, but also like social interactions. I do believe that if you have little social interaction, or maybe even just with your partner, but if you're like by yourself and you don't see anyone, like I feel like eventually things go downhill. Yeah. Aging, I don't think I'm worried yet about like, getting old, because I feel like it's so far. Time, like I have other things in the meantime I have to worry about before I can worry about that. You know what I mean? It is a weird thing though to see your parents aging and kind of like witness that, because I remember the days where I was a teenager, my parents like, were like much younger, moved a whole lot more, were like a lot more energetic, and I just kind of like seeing them slowly, I mean, they're still looking pretty good and in fairly good shape, but you see time go by. Yeah. And I think, and once you have a kid, like that's even worse, because then you're like, what is happening? Like, it's like change even faster.
Some of the stuff I can't think about too much because it frightens me. And one of the thoughts is that time it's a linear thing that once it goes by, it doesn't come back again. That's it. It's done with. Yesterday's gone. There's no more repeating yesterday. The last 5 years, 10 years, that's it. You're not getting that back. Yeah. Right? So when you experience from... let's say after you graduate college, the first 10 years of after you graduate, whatever you're doing, when you get to the age of 30, let's say, like your 20s, that's it. There's no more going back to the 20s. There's no more going back to that point in time when you were that agile, flexible, able to get drunk and recover, able to live a certain life, to take certain risks, to live affordably, live cheaply, right, with not a lot of money in the bank. Like that's gone, right? You only have one chance at that decade. And the next decade, that's gone too at some point. That's it. It's almost a paradox, because there's no way for a person who is at that bracket of 20 to 30, like I described, there's no way for them to be able to comprehend what it is going to mean in the future to have that time in the past, right? You're just in it. And that is the paradox.
Yeah, it is, because you can't really live your 20s in the way that you should be doing all these things to line things up for when you're in your 30s, like for example, it shouldn't work like that. Like you should just enjoy it.
I remember when I was in my 20s, I had a lot of friends who were older and in their 30s, and of course when you're in your 20s, someone who's in their 30s is like, oh my God, you're so old. Yeah. Wow, you're like an adult, you're talking about health insurance and stuff. What does that even mean? And they all remarked, some of them were like the late 30s, because when you start working in an office, like your peers become much older than you, and they would say the 30s is like the best decade, in your life. The 30s is your best life. And I've always remembered that for some reason.
I know everybody says that. And
right?
I don't know about it.
Maybe they just say that in New York City. But now that I'm at the edge of my 30s, I'm like, that was the best. Oh. I think, to be fair, it's different because we've had a not a unique path, but a different path than most people, and we have our own business, and everything it's different. The metrics are different, the timeline is different, and architecture takes forever, so it's a different thing.
I think it's also hard to appreciate the best time of your life or whatever when you're in the middle of it. Like, I think we have context of before the 30s. We don't have context yet about after the 30s. So I think once you're in your 40s, you probably look back at your 30s and feel one way or the other. I mean, my 20s were pretty good. I enjoyed my 20s. My 30s there's a lot happening in the 30s, but maybe it's good. I don't know.
Yeah. Much like you said at the beginning of this conversation, I have too much stuff to do, so I don't really dwell on it. It's just on occasion when I see an old person, I start to think about all this.
I when I see an old person, I wonder, what am I going to look like when I'm old?
I don't like that idea either. I don't want to think about it. Like, what is that? Like, that's so weird.
What do you mean?
It's so weird.
What is weird?
You get old and you look like a grape. No, a raisin. Like, what is that?
But again, you're Asian. You're going to have like perfect skin and dark hair. And
until I'm 50.
I'm going to be the one with all the wrinkles and the gray hair. Okay?
No, you're going to change incrementally. So no one will notice. I'm going to be looking the same I am now. I'm going to look like I'm 18 as I do now until I'm 50. And then, bam, I'm going to be like 92. And people will be like, oh, wow, okay. What do you do, kung fu or something? I'll like, no. And then we'll live in a fascist country at that point, which we already do.
Yeah.
I do think that, in general, the way we treat the elderly, despite what I've just said, the way we treat the elderly in the United States, which is the only experience I have, is pretty bad. Like, there needs to be a better system to maintain the health and wellness of people after a certain point. Because, again, I'm from a decent-sized family, so everyone in my family who's gotten to a certain age, there's people around to help. Not like everyone's living next to each other in a compound, but someone's there if you need them.
Yeah.
But we have some, family friends and folks who we know who they don't have anybody. And they get older, and all it takes is for them to get sick, as it happens to everybody, or they fall, hit their head, or whatever it is. And that's it. Yeah. Like, your life is kind of, I don't know, this is like a depressing podcast now. But it's just
gloomy, dark after hours.
Yeah. And a lot of it is just luck, too. Like I said, there's some folks we know, it's just bad luck. There's nothing.
Is it bad luck or is it bad choices?
No, it's bad luck for the individual I'm thinking. And they were and are, but when they were younger, they were extremely smart, intelligent, attractive, successful, and then just some health things happened. They didn't have family. And then once you get into that, like serious health issues, once you get into that state, there's not a lot of like government support, really, right? Because the health insurance and all, it's just nonsense here. And that's kind of it. And then the rest of the life is just trying to literally survive and not end up on the streets. And I think that I think it's very easy for everyone who is healthy and makes a decent living to forget that there's probably a lot of people who are on that cusp, right? So their mentality day to day is survival. It's not survival in the sense that they're in the forest with a wooden spear hunting boar, but it's modern day survival, and it's just as dangerous. It's nearly just as dangerous because they're on that cusp of not even having a place to be or having the health so they can the medication or the treatment or whatever it is to be able to go to the grocery store and buy some frozen chicken nuggets or whatever. Okay, now I'm really bringing it down, but and so it's just. Yeah, I don't know.
What's the point of living?
I don't know how this came up.
Okay, well, this is uplifting.
Yeah, but I do wish that there was. We just did a better job of basically what I'm describing, I guess, in the broadest sense of Social Security.
Talking about the elderly, the one thing that shocked me when I first came to this country was seeing people in the edge of retirement or way past working at grocery stores at the register. And I was
very common.
I was shocked because that doesn't happen in Europe. Like, you're like, what, 65, 70? You're retired, man. Like, you're at home, you're doing your hobbies.
It
like,
must
you're
happen
not,
in Europe.
that you don't see that. And I remember the first time I saw one person, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then I saw more. And I was like, wait, is this a trend? Like, what is going on? And I thought they were volunteer or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
I was like, oh, maybe they're volunteering on the weekend because they're bored and they want to, see people and whatever. No, man, they have to do that because otherwise they can't afford, keep living until they die. So that's what they're going to do. And yeah, it's freaking depressing. Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely some folks who are doing it for their reasons you mentioned, and it's very common. Anyone that's listening in the United States, they know. Like, of course, there's elderly people working in grocery stores at the checkout register and whatever else. Sometimes in those settings, you see at checkout some, not teenagers, but like 20-year-olds, college kids, and they're rambunctious, or they're maybe not as polite as they should be, or they expect the person to serve them better. I'm like, dude, like, relax. Like, do you think this person who's in their late 60s or 70s, whatever they are, like, wants to be working at 6 p.m. at a whatever store, at a Costco or Trader Joe's or Whole Foods? Like, no, of course not. Or back in the like Blockbuster, like, give them a break. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, maybe they messed up, but who cares? Like, do you understand their life and their situation? Like, you got to have a little bit of, I guess, empathy or heart or something. There probably needs to be just more of that in general.
Do we have something more positive to talk about? This is really depressing.
I did have a thought. What was it? Oh, no, this was another depressing thought, so never mind. It was about...
no, let's save that for another time.
Okay. Well, I did write down...
God.
I did have a question for you. It's architecture related.
Oh, I was hoping not to talk about architecture because it's an after-hour episode, and as the name suggested, it's after hours, so you don't talk about work stuff.
Well,
maybe you save that for later.
Both of my questions were architecture related. So
I was really looking forward not to talk about architecture because it's like 6.5 days a week. It's all about architecture, and
that's great. I love it.
At some point you kind of have to like turn the computer off and reboot.
There's just so many things to discuss when it comes to architecture, though.
Yeah, one lifetime won't be enough.
It won't be enough.
It won't be.
I know. That's my concern. That's my concern. I'm going to be 70. I'm going to look like a prune, and I'm going to be like, oh, I have more to do, but my time's up. Okay, great.
Oh, you went from a raisin to a prune, so you're reverse aging? That's good. It's funny because if it's not about architecture, you have nothing else to talk about.
I could talk about it all. I mean, obviously, all day, every day. My problem is that when I meet somebody who's not an architect and they ask me a question about architecture, I have to control myself not to go on for. We were at lunch today with somebody.
And for me, it's the opposite. I'm like, can we not talk about it?
We were at lunch today with somebody and asked a question about, let's say, the business of architecture. And I had to preface my response by saying, I could talk for about 8 hours about this. So I'll try and like not do that. And I think I did a pretty good job of answering the question.
Yeah, and I think I completely tuned out when you started talking. I was like, nope. Because the problem too is that I've heard those things 100 times from you, and every time we meet someone and they ask those things, I have to hear it again. So I just tune out.
This is why I tend to be the one that is out there like prospecting or facing clients and things, because it is repetitive.
It's funny,
but
because
it should not be me
because
I'm not as attractive. I mumble. I struggle with R's. I don't look. It should not be me. We all know that it should be you. It should be you. No. But you refuse. So you stick out me out there. I'm like, we can't. Huh?
Yeah, you try to sign me up for like events to go by myself. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that, man. I'm the one behind the computer doing like work. I'm not interested in having those types of meetings. People probably wonder how the office works, actually. So here we are. That's sort of it. I would say we have complementary skill sets, though. I think that's true. I mean, there is overlaps in terms of the skills and interests, but it's pretty clear who's maybe better at some things and
Yeah.
and not, or like more interested in
Yeah.
those things. Yeah.
But it's not as clear cut as people think. Like people want to say, "Oh, so you do, you're in charge of all the technical things, and you do all of like the, I don't know, material selection, and you do CA or you do inters," and it's like, but it's not quite like that. I find we should make a diagram, like the diagram of where the overlap and the complementary overlaps are, or how the fingers like interweave, is more nuanced. It's not by like physical category of things necessarily. It's a mixture of a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes part of me wonders if we should be more clean cut.
Yeah,
In
not
a way,
interesting.
In a way that I don't know. I'm wondering if it would be just more efficient if it was more clean cut.
No,
No, because David likes to control everything.
it's a quality thing, and I think
Go to quality again.
say what?
Huh?
I think that's the. I don't know. Like, what?
It's the obsessiveness.
You and I worked at a lot of different offices, and there's offices that focus like extremely on quality, so much so that they have zero BD, as we say, business development, zero marketing, zero, staff. They're very small. And then there's offices who sort of on the other end of the spectrum, to be honest, quality is just not as highly, valued in their office, and they have bigger staff, more projects, just more, right? More of everything. And there's a thousand different steps between those two ends, and it's interesting to think about like where we are in that scale. And I think this is a good example of like you just do what feels right, and then in the future you reflect, and then you see where you land up. It's sort of similar to, for example, you don't try and establish from day one your architectural style and vision as an architect. You do work for a decade or 15 years or 20 years, and then you reflect back, and then you understand that there's an underlying thesis to your work, right? Because you force it otherwise. But I don't know where I was going with that. But for the moment, I think it's more about quality than it is anything else. I think that's just... I just don't... It's like if you're not going to produce really high-quality work that you believe in, then what are you even doing?
I see what you're doing here, Like, I know you too well. I see what you're doing. You're just sneaking into the topic of architecture, very casually dipping your toes. But nope, I would not respond to what you're saying.
Okay. Well, what do you want to talk about then?
I don't know, life in general. What's up,
6.5 days of my life is architecture, so the other half a day is vacuuming. I can talk about the very annoying aspect of the Dyson V8 vacuum that doesn't have a replaceable batteries. You have to buy like a third-party thing and buy third-party batteries that don't last. What the hell, Dyson? I just want to design things that work. Well, kinda works.
This is why
right?
I vacuum, because when you vacuum, then it becomes this whole political propaganda about the battery. No, I actually agree. It's kind of a fault in the design.
No, I mean, come on. What is that about?
I know. It's kind of silly. That's it.
I don't got anything else, man.
Oh, well.
Oh, well. Oh, well, that's it. I have questions written down.
I'm not talking about architecture.
you.
Stop it. There's a funny thing, it just keeps following you everywhere you go.
What, architecture?
Yeah. But it's funny because actually, we've been watching The White Lotus, right? Like, I don't know, millions of people.
Yeah.
And whenever I watch a TV show in general, I don't think I actually pay close attention to... I mean, if there is an iconic building that kind of stands out in a scene, like, I look at it, right?
Sure.
But like interior design and like, the details of the windows and this and that, I don't think I actually pay that much attention.
Yeah, we're the opposite.
To it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I'm always pausing it.
Oh, that's why.
Going back 10 seconds. Now, look at that.
No, I mean...
That's why you're annoyed when I do that, because you don't want to think about architecture at night. Yeah. There's a lot of cool architecture
you go
in the White
back
Lotus.
and you rewatch scenes like 3 times in a row. You like rewind. I'm like, I just want to get through the plot here.
But
like,
there's details to study.
Oh my God. And you're like, could we rewatch that movie? but we just finished watching it. Like, give me another year before we do that.
There's lots to see.
No, but it's something I realized recently. I was like, I don't really pay attention to the details. I mean, I pay attention to the overall picture, but I don't pay attention to like the details or like the color. I mean, it depends on the show. You know, of course, like White Lotus, for example. Of course, I'm going to pay attention to like, you know, the resort feeling, the patterns on the wall, and the this and the that. Like, if it like Wes Anderson, of course, I'm going to pay attention to it, right? Fine. But in most things, not really. I mean, if there's a crappy kitchen in there, like, of course, I say like, oh, this is a crappy kitchen, like,
yeah,
you know. But yeah, I try to run away from architecture. And now a quick break to thank the sponsors who support the second studio.
Hey architects, would you like to get your as-built faster? Of course you would. Well, IPX has you covered. IPX lets you seamlessly transform your laser scans into LOD 300 BIM and CAD files. Whether you've got your 3D scans already or you need a full laser scanning service, IPX offers instant pricing and order tracking for scan to BIM services on any project, no matter the size or complexity. Once a building scan is complete, IPX delivers detailed BIM, CAD, 360-degree virtual tours, and material takeoffs in their platform where you can view, share, export, query, and quantify areas, floors, and materials. Check out the IPX link in our show notes.
If you're an interior designer, you need to check out Programma. Programma is the all-in-one project management software designed to streamline the entire design process. Its cloud-based specification schedules are always up to date, minimizing double handling. This means you can spend less time switching between tools and more time designing. Click the Programma link in our episode notes and use the code SECONDSTUDIO at checkout to save 25% on an annual subscription and enjoy exploring all of the other tools Programma offers.
Like someone was asking, like, what is it like to do architecture school, you know, learn about architecture, practice as an architect? And then, you know, be out in the world. What do you see as an architect?
It sucks. You see everything.
What?
You see everything. It sucks.
See, for me, you see everything, and it's like an endless, like you could just stay awake with your eyes open 24/7 and just look at everything all the time. Yeah. And to me, I think that's the interesting part of it.
I'm joking, of course, it's pretty awesome. And actually, I was thinking about the fact that we're both architects and we now have a baby, right? And my plan is not for him to become an architect unless, you know, that's something he wants to be doing. But I was wondering if the fact that we are two architects, if our way of seeing the world, like we're going to show him the world the way we see it, and how is that going to differentiate from like other parents or other schoolmates he's gonna have, you know, like, is he gonna become one of those weird kids who's like understanding too much of the world before he needs to?
I don't think we're that intelligent, first of all, but
no, but it's not about intelligence, it's about awareness.
Yeah.
Awareness is not intelligence.
Well, that's an interesting thought, because I think that people might be surprised or not surprised that the first thing you have to be good at in order to be an architect, a good architect, like the very first thing is you need to be a good observer. Yeah, you need to be good, you know, like you need to be good at looking at things, reading things, witnessing things, hearing things, and understanding that information and synthesizing the information to create a particular, honest, socially, you know, productive and hopefully unique or cool take on what that information is telling you, right? If you don't have the ability to listen or watch and observe, you can't be a good architect. I sincerely believe that. Yeah. Same thing with teaching. If you don't know how to listen, you can't be a good teacher in a design sense where you're working directly with students, not like a lecture format. So I could see certainly where if any kid has two parents who are good, I'm not talking about us, but like let's imagine there's another kid. Let's make it a bit more objective, and he has two parents who are good architects or great architects. I would imagine that kid's going to grow up with the ability to understand, or at the very least, have an appreciation for the things around him, even if they don't understand it, right? Because I was thinking about it too, like, you know, the day-to-day life is a 9 to 5, 9 to 6 job, whatever it is, and that's just kind of a loop. But the time where you start to really sort of understand people and who they are is when you in a way, are on a vacation with them, which sort of ties to the White Lotus. I was thinking the other day, the White Lotus is a very interesting premise because vacation is like, it's a unique petri dish time and space of people being at one time not themselves, but at the same time totally themselves, right? But anyway, so vacations, I think, in the context of the architect and kid, conversation, that's like where you start to understand who people are. So, like, when I went to China for the first time, it was part of a large group of 50 Americans, and it was interesting to see how everyone responded and how everyone dealt with traveling to China, which is no one else had been to, most of the group had not been to China before. And what things they saw, what things they would talk about, what things stood out to them, and how they would talk about it. And there were some people, as you might imagine, who were like not very respectful, and picked up on certain things, which to me I saw, but were not necessarily the big point of what we saw on the day. Like, there's other things that were much more profound and fascinating than that goofy shit that they kept pointing out. And I think that tells, so I feel like, if you're on a vacation and you have two architects as parents, you're probably going to see a lot of buildings, but also the conversations and their interests are going to be, at the very least, probably more culturally respectful. Not all architects are like saints. I'm not saying that, but I think that's going to be part of it, right? More so than if your parents are, I don't know, whatever other thing that's the opposite of architecture. Like when we travel, right? It's a lot of buildings.
It's never a vacation.
Yeah, true. Well, yeah, that's true too.
It's never. Well, whenever we travel, we want to see stuff, right? Like we want to see architecture. We want to see places. And when you think of vacations, like, oh, you're on the beach and you're lizarding on the beach for 7 days in the sun.
Resorting or lizarding?
Lizarding.
Okay, that's what I thought
on
you
the
said.
Beach, and, sunbathing, sipping margaritas, and doing nothing.
Yeah,
right? And that is never what we do when we're on vacation.
We usually have like 2 hours where we do that, and then we're like, we got to go do something.
What are we doing next?
Yeah. No, I mean, look, like when we went to Switzerland last summer, we did some goofy fun videos that are just for fun. But I feel like we were actually asked today by somebody, what do you like to do when you go on these trips? First of all, we don't go on many trips, so it's like, I don't know. But secondly, your answer was interesting because it was, we like to look at buildings, obvious, but also we like just to like walk around and just see the city and see people and eat at places. Like there's nothing specific. Yeah, maybe go to a museum or something like that, but we're not discotheque people. We don't bar hop necessarily, but I don't know, just seeing what life is like there. That's what I'm interested in more than whatever that means. If it means that we go hang out on a farm, milk goats, and that's life, and that's what we're going to do. Or if it's a city where we just walk around and just observe and just kind of understand what it's like there. That's the interest. I don't know. It's actually
more, I think for me it's actually more fun to just walk the streets, see like what do people look like here, what do they eat, do I see like the same thing at every corner, and try to like, not being like a detective, but kind of, try and find like what makes this place different from the other places. That's what's interesting to me.
And I think a lot of people, when they travel, that's what they're doing. I'm not trying to make it sound like architects are special or that we're special. I think a lot of people do that, but I do feel like by profession, a very high percentage of architects probably do what we do when we travel in what we're talking about, not just seeing buildings. Because that's what that's what you do. That's what you do.
I love supermarkets in different countries because it's like,
that's a good one. That's a good one.
We have a family member who's going to France in a few weeks, and I put on the list of things to do, go to a French supermarket and check out every single aisle, especially the yogurt aisle, and you will be amazed. No, because it tells you, like, it basically tells you how people live, like what matters to them, right? While in France, guess what? There's a bunch of yogurts and dairy products because that is like part of the culture, right? If you go, I don't know, to other countries, like you're going to see like the thing that people eat often by just going to the supermarket and see like how many aisles are filled with that, right? So I don't know. It's kind of It's kind of interesting. I mean, there's always like the monuments and the things you should see if it's your first time. Fine, like why not? But
the thing
it's not the most fun because I think because you already know what those things look like. You just want to see it in person with your own eyes. And sometimes it's an amazing thing, and sometimes it's just like the photo you've seen.
But your description of seeing of course you would talk about dairy and yogurt. That would be your thing. But with your description of seeing the yogurt, I
didn't mention butter, but it's not far from it. Yeah, it's right next to it.
But your description of that is how I feel, and I know you feel, and a lot of architects feel probably about just being in a city, like any city, right, or a generic neighborhood. Neighborhoods that have really bad architecture is just depressing, but like depressing if it's local. But in other places, it's food, it's sustenance, it's nourishment. That's the best way I can describe it. It's like eating, I don't know, a hamburger. It's like eating something, but you're not eating anything. You're just looking at the city, the streets, the landscape, the sidewalks, the trees, the people, the cafes, the buildings, the monuments, the interior design, how the grocery store is laid out. Like all that stuff is just nourishment for the eyes.
And I wish that part of me, well, now we have a kid, it's a different thing, but I wish that I would be more adventurous in the destinations and the type of vacation. Like, it's time. I would love to go to a place that is super remote in a country that I don't know and just be immersed in the thing. Like, I think that would be an amazing experience,
Time is the problem, and it's really unfortunate because...
But I think about life and like we have to work 5 days a week until we can retire, all that bullshit, and it really annoys me because again it's all made up. Like someone at some point was like, you know what, everybody should go to work from Monday to Friday and everybody should only have like 2 weeks of vacation per year because guess what, that's all we need. But I'm like, this is such a dumb system. Like life is just about working. And, if you do something meaningful after 5 days a week, then that's great. But if you don't, then it really sucks, right? Because what are you contributing to? Nothing.
And repeat that last part.
If you're working 5 days a week and your job is meaningful, that's great. You're contributing to something meaningful to this planet. If your job sucks, your life is pointless working like that, right? Yeah. And very often I just think about that whole made-up society rule thing that everybody's blindly following. And more often than not, I'm like, do we have to do that? Like, could we just throw that out the window, go live somewhere and like be happy forever by not following all of those rules? Like,
you mean we generically?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good question. I'm sure it's an existential question, sort of, that I think a lot of people ask very often when they have jobs like you've described. I think
when tax season comes. Fuck this. I'm moving to Hawaii. I'm going to sell coconut on the side of the road and be happy forever. No, but it's true. Like,
but I think it's also different, right? Like, we're very fortunate in that we know what we want to be doing, and we are doing it. So we don't have that feeling. I mean, yeah, of course, there are times when things are difficult for anybody in any business, in any capacity in terms of work, where you're like, I could use a break and I want to go sell coconuts. But in general, right, like, we're lucky because we know what we want to do and we're doing it. So that's the difference to me between artists and, I don't know, everyone else who's not an artist, or artists and, let's say, someone who is in micro data refinement. You know what I mean? Like, the artist is an interesting individual because there's no separation between night and day, after work and work, personal life and work, and this world and that world, right? They see the world through their lens and they behave through that lens. That's why artists, I feel like a lot of times, they dress weird. Sometimes it's a marketing kind of gig, but they dress different. Everything they do is the embodiment of their vision in some way. Then they're like the most honest and truthful type of human being. You might not agree with them. You might not like their stuff, like whatever, doesn't matter. But they're like very, very, very pure. And they almost like physically don't have the capacity to behave or do anything other than that thing. And I find that so fascinating. And I would say that if you were to draw a line in the sand, that designers and other creatives are also in that same line with the artists that I've described. And when you have a passion and it's contributing something, you're making something, your passion is not micro data refinement, but you're making something, it feels the same way. Like, I don't understand, I do not comprehend the other side and of the line, which is I go and work to 9 to 5, I make money, I make a nice comfortable 6 figures, and I go home, and then my life starts. I do not understand that. That to me is as foreign as some alternate dimension of existence. I do not understand that. It makes no sense to me, right? I'm not hating on it. That's what most people do, but I don't comprehend it. I could never exist that way. It's crazy to me.
Well, I think it goes back to what makes you happy, and you don't understand it because it wouldn't make you happy, right?
I just don't understand it. I don't understand it.
For me, what I don't understand is how you can, work a 9 to 5 at a micro data refinement service.
Yeah, that's a great reference.
And clock out at 5 p.m. and then switch back to your other self and, be happy until Monday morning comes. Like,
it's also, like, mathematically, it's a lot of time of
I
your
know,
life
that's what
where
I'm
you're
saying.
not...
And it's like, what's the point of your life at the end of your life? It's like, oh, guess what? You spend like most of your life in micro data refinement, and now this is the exit door, and you're about to die, and this is all you've done. Like, I don't know. Is that enjoyable? Was that meaningful?
At the same time, there's plenty of people who do that, and they seem much more... relaxed, and they're lighter than those who have everything, all their eggs in one basket, let's say.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And that's where, I don't know, maybe like you were kind of talking probably about the creative people versus the non-creative people.
Yeah,
in a very, segregated way of thinking about it, right? I mean, you could be creative in micro data refinement, I suppose, but not...
No, you can't.
not in the way that, you're creating things from nothing, right? Like...
Yeah, well, I think you phrased it well, like people who are creating things but also like contributing something of value. And I don't want to get too like sanctimonious about it, and I think it's very easy for what I'm about to say to sound like kind of an asshole, but it's like if you're spending the majority of your waking hour, the majority of your hours awake doing something that is not helping actually really anything or contributing.
In the same time, to be devil's advocate, in the same time, you do need those people because there's things in this world that needs to run, and someone has to.
But
run
I
those
would
things,
say,
right?
but if that's the description of X job, then that's valuable, right? So, like being a garbage man, as I would say, right? That's something. Working at the MTA and downstairs, that's like something. But if
being
you're
an
working for
influencer,
no, but exactly. So a good influencer is a good reference point,
you're
right?
welcome.
Like how many people now of the younger generation are just being influencers and they are quote successful? They're making a lot of money. They're very famous and this and that. But what are you actually doing, right? That yes, you're happy. Yes, you're making money, and now you're supporting your parents. But beyond your fucking self, what are you actually doing, man? Like, and woman, whatever. Are you actually contributing? No, you're not. No, you're not, right? Why is it that you are going to this place and spending thousands of dollars to go to this place? You're doing it to do a video. Why are you doing the video? To get more followers. Why? That's not an end goal, right?
I mean, they're basically walking commercials.
They are walking commercials.
They're human commercials.
They're human commercials, and I think it's extremely shallow. And I would, since it's an after hours, I say I think people who work at like large corporations, where their corporation is not really doing anything, the corporation itself is not really doing anything, and their job is contributing toward that doing nothingness. Fuck off. That's my personal opinion. Like, I don't know. I think that's nonsense. And it's an unrealistic perspective to have. I'm not saying like everybody has to go and like make pottery or something, but sometimes I do think like, well, what if all those people just stopped doing that? Would we like maybe revert back to a place or get to a place where we're actually being more helpful to each other rather than...
Sometimes, I wish social media never existed.
Sure.
I mean, social media could be awesome. Like we've met a lot of people and connected through a lot of people with social media. So, there is good stuff about it. But I also sincerely wish it never existed because I think it's really changed our relationship with people, perception of the world, perception of ourselves, like in a way that is not really bringing us to the top, you know, and it's consistent. It's not consistent. It's constant, you know, it's always there, and there is no going back from it. Like, I don't think it's ever going to disappear. And
unfortunately, most of it is the bad stuff. Right, it's not real I mean, it's
stuff. Like sometimes I go on TikTok, you know, just to like kind of like tune out. Yeah, it's dog shit. Most of it is
dark or dog?
Dog shit.
Okay.
It's like content about whatever. Like it's like a lot of like, oh, I'm a new mom. If you're a new mom and you have a baby, you should buy this, you should buy that because this is what I do. And the most annoying people, the most like shallow content, and I'm like. This is great if you can support your family doing that. Like, yeah, good. I mean, good job. You don't have to go work in a factory to like, you know, raise 3 kids. You could just put some shitty video on TikTok and like pay for rent. That's great. But it's like, but what is that? Why should I be seeing that content?
But see, to me, like, great for you and their immediate family, but harmful potentially for everyone else. So like, don't do it. Right. And I do think I think everyone has a level of responsibility to at least acknowledge whether or not what they're doing is actually helping or it's not. And I do think the arts counts as helping. You know, I'm not saying you have to go and like volunteer and build, structures in some other country. I mean, like producing art is itself, I think, valuable. That's my opinion. But I think the impetus is on all of us to think that way. Or if you're doing something that's somewhat meaningless, your tasks are, at least do it for a company who is on the right side of things or trying to be or whatever. But if it's a bullshit company that's charging a lot of money for bullshit stuff, then, you know, I don't know. I was speaking with someone and they were saying, well, my kid, you know, I hope when they grow up, you know, I just want them to be happy and enjoy what they're doing, whatever that is. If you want to be a doctor, that's great. If you want to be a lawyer, that's great. You're naming all the usual stuff. You want to be an influencer, that's fine. That's great. Do that.
No,
not fine. That's great. Do that too. And I was like, like, there's a strong argument that a lot of lawyers are kind of shady, but you could be a good lawyer. You could be a good doctor. You could be a good influencer too, but you know, generally when you use the term influencer, your thoughts are not a good influencer. So like, so how many years can you pull that off? Are you going to be an influencer from the age of 25 until you're 75? I mean, we say this as people who put out content like we do, and this is, you know, we're doing this casual conversation, but I just, there's a lot of influencers or people who have podcasts or like whatever else, right? And they achieve some level of success, right? And they know, okay, if I do this thing, I'll get more followers. So I'm going to do that thing, right? I'm going to fly to whatever place and take a selfie. I'm going to buy this product and do a review. And it's not even going to be a review. I'm just going to be funny with it and wear it around like Apple Vision or whatever and do a goofy thing, put some music to it, do really fast cuts and 1 second cuts everywhere and put subtitles because I get more clicks. And at some point I'm like, okay, but what's the point of what you're doing other than, again, gaining more followers? It's different for us in our show because, to be honest, there are boundaries of what we do on here. And we do what we want to do, and we do what we think will be fun, and we do also what we think will have some amount of value to contributing to the discourse of design, architecture, and whatever else, right? Sometimes it's a tiny nugget in our conversation, but usually, like, you know, there's something there. We're not doing anything because it's going to get more people to listen or watch.
Yeah, and it's probably why we have millions of followers.
I also firmly believe that's probably why. Yeah. And it's not an excuse. Also, there's stuff we could do to grow that we probably aren't doing.
I could show a boob or two on a video, and it will like
a boob or two. Wow, a boob or 3.
No, but it's true. Like, you know, boobs are power. I think, but it's underused.
Underused by architects. Actually, on the subject of influencers,
that's an interesting.
Underused by architects, overused by interior designers, right?
Boobs?
Yeah. I mean, interior
Well,
design,
there's probably more boobs in interior design than there is in architecture.
There's some cleavage and some like, underwear action going through like a whatever lace dress. I'm like, okay, well, what
kind of interior designers are you talking about?
Some famous ones.
Some
famous ones.
Oh.
But on the subject of architects, designers, and whatever, professionals and influencers, there have been more architects who are influencers or trying to become influencers now, right?
Right.
I see every now and then an architect's working at their desk and they have like a video camera,
Oh, yeah.
Like you've seen these things of name any other gamers, right? Or I don't know, whatever hell profession they're doing. And like this morning I woke up, or like fitness influencers, right? They film themselves during the day, 5 o'clock in the morning, eating my protein shake, 6 o'clock in the morning, going for like a run, I've run 10 miles, 7 a.m. Now I'm in the pool, and they track their whole day, and they're doing the work as a gym fanatic, but they're also big influencer by doing this.
Right.
I've seen this for architects.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And it's like, I'm at my desk drawing. I can't figure this design out, so I'm rubbing my hair around. I have trace paper. Oh, they don't use trace because they're of the younger generation. So I'm clicking on my mouse. Oh, and then this happens and that happens. And I'm kind of like, architecture is such a craft to be respected, and it's really difficult. Your work sucks, and I know one of the reasons why it sucks is because you're not spending enough time focusing on architecture. You're spending time thinking about what you look like, pretending to do architecture or doing architecture. But it's like, when I'm working on our work, I'm not thinking about,
I can immediately
can I capture this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a big office, you have like a media company, then that's like different. I understand that. But I'm talking about, I see young people who think that they can both do this influencer self-produced stuff because, of course, there's a one-person shop unless they have millions of dollars to hire a company. But spend time doing that and also do architecture. My opinion, no, you cannot. You can't. This is an all-in profession and craft and art. And if you actually want to be good at it, not even great, but good at it, you got to focus. There's no, and I've said this also to students, like there's no substitution for time at your desk, right? Going and traveling, going and take side pictures, going and doing selfies of you working or whatever other stuff on the periphery, that's all noise. At your desk with, in my case, pen and trace or whatever it is, right? There's no substitution for that. You need to be focused. And you need to have that space that's unadulterated, uninterrupted. It needs to be that. And it makes me cringe when I see people who are, again, trying to do both things. I'm like, you can't. And I've seen it more and more, and I'm a little, I don't know what it is. And there's nothing wrong with it because, you're sharing information, you're sharing what it's the day in the life of an architect or day in the life of an architecture student. But to me, I'm like, or you could just focus on your work, dude.
Yeah, but I think it's because you're focusing too much on what do you look like from the eyes of other people,
right?
Which is again the biggest problem about this social media is the perception of yourself through the eyes of other people. It's not even about like what are you about. It's about how you want people to see you. It's the same thing there. Like, it's like, how do you want people to see you as an architect? Well, this is the perfect architect, that I am. And look at me. And it's like, but that's not what it should be about. It should be about your work.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, for people who are doing that, guarantee they're going to end up not being an architect in the end. They're going to end up being, a media.
Well, I think they're probably
that's fine too, but it's just
enamored about presenting that perception of things, and they're not into what it actually is to be in the grind. So yeah, maybe they should just focus on being in the media rather than architecture.
To me, it's also like, the architect who's like, in modern day that I'm familiar with, as like the epitome of like really focusing on the work was Louis Kahn. There's stories of his office being a complete shit show, like trace, old sandwiches, not
really?
Presentable to clients.
Oh,
really? Yeah. Versus you go to X other office, right? And the client's visiting, there's like the red carpet, so to speak.
beautiful renderings, freshly printed,
exactly.
samples lined up, and
exactly.
Everybody's like nicely dressed that day, and there was fresh coffee, from around the corner, when there's never anything like that before.
Yep. Exactly. And actually what we're talking about can extend just to the more standard space of, presenting an image of sorts because you want to impress the client and you're presenting an image which is not really real, versus if we take my understanding of Louis Kahn, he just didn't give a shit. Like he just cared about the work. And like we're doing the work, which is what I care about, and my office is my office.
But that's again because the society, the times have changed. Now everything's about the image.
I think everything was always about the image, but maybe it's now even more so. I don't know. There's not. I didn't general. I just sometimes feel like there's not enough focus on the craft of the thing, whatever the thing is. Like a lot of distractions. I find a lot of distractions.
Well, let's hope our kid doesn't end up as an influencer. That would be a big bummer.
Unless he makes lots of money, then I'll be okay with it. The first rule of thumb is for any human being, I think, to be nice to other people. That's the most important thing. And then second is all the stuff I've said. But, just gotta be nice.
Well, and be attractive. That's one of the things, when we were like waiting for him to arrive. It's like, oh, what would you want him to be like if you could decide that? And
nice.
And I think nice. the thing we both felt in common was like just be a nice person.
Just be a nice person.
Just be kind. Be a kind person.
Be understanding. Be kind. That's it.
So
at a bare minimum.
We'll see.
Because there are a lot of people who are not very nice, and they don't have their heads on straight. And it's like, why? Why are you choosing to be that way? Like I don't understand it. So yeah. See, okay, there we go. A little bit of.
You managed to trick me into it. I can never run away.
I have more questions.
No. You can save those for non-after-hour episodes. That's right. Yeah. Don't even think about bringing that up during dinner time.
Well, no, it's time to watch. Actually, no, it's not Sunday, so we can't watch The White Lotus. We should talk about Severance on the show at some point, though. It's pretty interesting.
It's also pretty depressing.
I mean, it's depressing because of its description of real life, or it's the show is depressing. What's happening to the people in the show is depressing, or both.
Or both. I'm waiting for TV shows that are going to be funny.
Yeah, oops. Ted Lasso was an interesting one because it was...
Yeah.
Well, the first shows I've seen that was basically just all positive. It wasn't... There was
some sadness here and there, but it was like funny and kind of light and just normal.
But the point of the story was positivity, like, and belief. Yeah. Like, it's kind of amazing that you do a show...
about that.
That's just about that. And some goofy guy who's like, it doesn't really, I feel like on paper, it wouldn't seem like it would make sense or that it would sell. Yeah. Right.
Or like The Office, for example. That was an awesome show.
The Office is a completely different.
No, but you know what I mean.
The Office was also sad if you think about it. Michael Scott's character was sad.
Well, yeah, but.
But it was.
Just think about Dwight then.
It's weird. Remember the clip? I think David was showed the other day where there's a scene. Yeah. This is when Michael is dating. What's her name? Jan.
Yeah.
I think they're living together in his townhouse condo, and he's hosting a dinner party. And so, like, a bunch of people from the office come to the dinner party, and he's in his living room, and it's one of the best scenes. Anyone who watched The Office knows probably what I'm about to describe. And the scene is, so there's Jim and Pam in the living room, and they're facing Michael and Jan, who's kind of across from them. And the camera's looking at Jim and Pam, so you don't see the wall behind Michael. And Michael's like, and so I finally invested and decided to buy plasma TV. And the camera pans over to the wall, and it's a plasma TV from like the 90s. It's like 18 by 24.
It's not even that big.
It's like 12 by, it's like tiny thing. Yeah. It's one of the best scenes ever. That show had so many good moments like that.
The stapler in Jell-O.
I think that was episode 1.
And then didn't they wrap his desk and everything too in like craft paper or something?
In Christmas paper.
Yeah.
And I think of that same one, Dwight's chair was made out of cardboard, so we sat down and collapsed. sometimes I wonder with those shows how they even completed some of those scenes. Like, how are you not just
laughing, like crying?
You
laughing.
can see them break character quite often.
I do like to see the behind the scenes. When they can't stop laughing.
Yeah.
Like that's always like so.
The plasma TV was one of them.
Yeah.
But
we need more shows like this, just kind of like light and funny. I mean, even Friends. Friends was just simple.
You're talking about sitcoms then? There's plenty of sitcoms. You just don't watch them.
No, I mean, the sitcom shows, I mean, you get the idea. I don't know, it doesn't have to be one or the other, but like everything is so like end of the world or like depression or like, but like fights and action and like guns. And it's like, oh, okay, can we just, like, I don't know. Yeah, sure, bring some zombies and some vampires. But can we bring like all the things in that? Like,
The Last of Us is coming back.
I know, it's depressing too. It's good. I mean, it's a good show, but it's like,
it's pretty serious.
Can we please, like,
There's a lot of TV that we just don't watch because it's too intense.
At the end of the day, you're tired of a bunch of stuff you're worried about, and you're thinking about the news are depressing, you can watch that, and then watching a TV show is great, but it's like depressing too, so what are we doing? I'm going to watch cartoons next because,
There's plenty of kind of serious cartoons.
Yeah, but the problem with serious cartoons I found is that a lot of them, first of all, are really loud. And it comes the evening, I don't want to watch anything loud when people are like yelling. And some of the women's voices are so annoying.
And what's
like
a cartoon?
There's that show, which one do you watch with the...
Invincible?
No, it's the voice of that girl from Big Bang Theory. What's her name again?
You're talking about Harley Quinn.
Oh my God, I can't, I mean...
It's pretty funny.
I mean, she's a good actress and whatever, right? But I cannot stand her voice at night. Like, this is just... It is the most
There's a lot of
annoying
cursing.
thing.
A lot of cursing.
A lot of cursing. And it's like, it's like, get out of my head. I do not need you in my head right now. Like, stop it.
That's one of the spinoffs and slightly different takes on a set of characters that I think you wouldn't appreciate because you don't follow that stuff, but it's funny. It's funny.
I'm sure it's funny, but the voice is so annoying. It's like, I don't know, it's off-putting to me.
Well, like Archer was a TV show we watched for a period of time that we stopped because it was just too much.
Archer,
but it got to be too much. It was too much, like just constant shouting.
Yeah, it's just kind of shouting. Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting. Maybe you have to do that when you have a cartoon because you need to give it life. And make the character stand out in a way that's just voice because the graphics are the graphics. But I mean, I could watch it at lunch maybe if I was watching cartoon at lunch. But the morning, no. The evening, no. So that gives you, limited amount of time.
Yeah. So instead, we'll watch The Last of Us and zombies and mushroom faces eating each other and whatever else.
Yeah, also, you watch those shows when you're eating.
I know.
A lot of these monsters and things, it's like, okay.
We were watching something, I was trying to eat like red sauce with meatballs. I'm like, this is a horrible timing for what I'm eating right now.
I know. It's like...
Yeah. All right, well, let's wrap it up. Let's go eat dinner and watch some gore stuff. Give us an outro.
Thanks everyone to listening to this shenanigans. If you like what we do, please follow us everywhere you can. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and many other platforms. The website is secondstudiopod.com. You have all of the episodes on there. And if you have questions, topics, guests you would want to see on the show, you can always send us a text message or leave a voicemail to our hotline number, which is 213-222-6950. And that's it. Keep listening. Keep sharing around if you do like the show. It means a lot. And stay tuned for more.
And if you have any good TV shows that are not as serious, let us know. That would be appreciated.
Funny. Please send it my way.
Okay. Talk soon. Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.